Hello everyone. Today we are going to be going over the results for the 2026 Retro GEMPC. So can't wait to show. So we had 46 people respond to this questionnaire. So thank you to everyone that responded and took the time to fill this out, and especially those people who gave a little feedback. So overall, most people who responded said yes, which makes sense. If you fill out the poll, you're more likely to say yes. A few people said maybe. One person said no, but basically just because they said that they weren't ready to do tournaments yet. Regardless, I appreciate the feedback. So when I talked about the question about seating, I kind of gave a few options there of what I thought made sense, as well as other people. And the majority of people said they wanted seated brackets like they did last year. There was a significant portion that asked for a randomized bracket. There were a few people that asked, suggested a couple of other kind of like rough seated brackets or a few alternative ones. Um, I think we had, a few decent suggestions here, depending, and I appreciate it. I just think that the brackets themselves are just very convenient to do. I think one person like mentioned like, pods for World Cup. But I mean, we used Challenge, last year when Andy was running this, and it's pretty simple. You just put people here, you see where they go. So I felt that this is just kind of a simple way to, you know, watch the tournament and keep up stats and be able to track progress. So I thought that was really convenient there. So yeah, so we'll go with the majority. Do seeded brackets for Retro Game PC. So we talked about, should there be a losers bracket, or there should be no losers bracket, single elimination throughout. I gave an option for a bracket with one only. Majority of people asked for a double elimination. I think some people were kind of concerned about kind of lengthening the tournament. One thing I will say is that if you have kind of a losers bracket, it's just going to effectively um, like you'll play two match plays. You'll play 4 games. At most, all it would do would be you get one extra round effectively, since everyone that loses in round one would go to round two, kind of thing. But I think at most it delays it a week. But I think simply because a lot of the efforts that Lev Randon or Steven Sanders has been trying to do is he's trying to get to be more NARC friendly. I think that if you're putting the time into playing this tournament, you're putting the time into submit your deck lists. I think it's really good that you play at least 2 games, two dark side, two light side for your 2 match play games. So I think double elimination probably makes sense. I think it'll probably work, and I think it's worth trying. And it's what the majority said, so we'll go with what the majority said here. All right, so I asked about a potentially new format idea I had, and I asked people, if you wanted to go with this format, what should be banned? There wasn't, there were some people that were very much a hard no. So a couple people told me like, if you make the Retro Game PC, a modified format, I don't want to play it. And there are other people that says that maybe the modified format would be good, but because this is kind of supposed to be like a kind of a championship level event, it's supposed to be it's a match play championship, it's supposed to be a big deal. We should really not kind of put a premier tournament with something that's kind of still kind of experimental. And that frankly made sense to me. And so if you look at the results here, the only kind of near consensus or kind of the near 50% was like 19 people said we should ban numbers from from the dark side. And if you look at the light side, 39% of people, or 18 out of 46 people, said that we should ban numbers for light side and anger, fear, aggression. Otherwise, there are a few cards that from the list appeared unpopular. I think a few people added a couple of potential options they could do, but that was the most. But it was a majority. So given the fact that a lot of the reason that this tournament was started is because some people felt strongly we should kind of have a premier event where we have kind of locked decks and people can't switch out all the time, and the fact that some of the top players like explicitly said that they think this should be kind of kind of an established format and they're probably not interested to me, that really pushes me to say that regular Premier Death Star 2 is probably the best way to go for this tournament. And that probably get the most participation. And given the numbers here, right? So if these numbers said 60% or 70%, I'd be more likely to say that modified format's there. But the truth of the matter is, inside serves you well does ban, does block this, or cannon hide forever, projected tiltway does block this, and so if you look at like the last, retro online championship series, you didn't see any numbers last year, for 2025, and so um, you know, yes, these numbers cards can be annoying. Yes, they can make an effect, but from kind of a high level competitive play standpoint, I don't think they're kind of they move the needle as far as like we have to ban this or else. So I think we're okay leaving it as kind of the pure format in this particular case. Um, and and that's kind of my point here. And so that you know just a note here that although, by the way, I had a typo here, so I had to kind of like fix some of this, but basically, yes, we did have a lot of people saying they wanted kind of a modified format, and so yes, technically speaking, I had like 10% plus 47%, so it'd be over there. And yes, only 23 or 24% mostly said they wanted, just a regular. The major issue to me is that there wasn't a grand consensus, or over 50% for any one band option. And I think given how popular Premier to Death Star 2 is, I think if you really don't like numbers, I think you know what to do. You start the effects that kind of prevent those from happening. You don't have to worry about it, kind of thing. So I think Premier Death Star 2 is perfectly fine to go with. And people had some options here and other feedback, so I appreciate the feedback here. People sharing this stuff, and I think that's really good. So I did make a post, and I'll kind of share that there. So in the forums, I kind of put the logo for the event, and I kind of put the details. So doing a target date of June 7th. So basically, this is going to overlap 1 week with the Premier Indoor Charity event, but just so that we can get this done. I put through August 8th. That's assuming that we kind of have kind of like over 64 players, which hopefully we do. And I'm adding 1 week in there just in case. Granted, kind of just like we talked about in the past, um, you know, by the time we get down here, like the number of players drastically reduces. So most people will not be playing, this far into it. And as we get kind of closer to these semifinals and finals, we might have more flexibility with kind of when kind of events proceed. So we'll see where that goes. But I think generally speaking, I think this timeline is probably pretty good. Match play, seeded, like we said, double elimination we talked about, locked decks like we talked about it. If the winner of this is automatically seeded to the online, Retro Online Championship series at the end of the year, so that's definitely a plus. So prizes here. So $500 worth of BTC, first place, $250 worth of BTC, $150 worth of BTC for the third and fourth place, and participation prizes for other players who complete all their games without conceding. Right. So if I find out that you conceded way too early, not like played one game but not two, if I find that out, I'm not going to do this. But this is available to players who were not first through fourth place, just for participating, having fun with us as token appreciation. I did make some custom playmats. I'll share more details about those later. I ordered a couple of these custom designs. I'm waiting for them to be shipped so I can open them up and see the quality. And then the idea is that I'll give, one of each of these to the kind of first through fourth place, and then for the random players that participate as well. So there's a chance you get both this and this, but it will be random. I did have a couple people kind of offer potentially for physical cards. So if you have some other prize you would like to donate for this event, that would certainly be appreciated. Let me know, and then we can kind of figure out, some way to make that happen, kind of add some incentivization for players to join. I made the Google form. I'll add it to this video. And at the moment, I think registration should end at this date just because I need a couple of weeks to kind of seed the players. Since seeding was the number one option, I need some trusted players to meet with to kind of rank players fairly as possible. And then I need some time to kind of let the GIMP admins, make this league properly. So I think this will be fun. Look forward to it. And there is one other twist I will share. So, like I noted earlier here, we had a plurality of votes for these two options here. We did not have a plurality of votes for this, and just in the sense of there wasn't like a clear kind of agreement as to kind of what should be banned. That being said, there was kind of a high demand to ban numbers at least, and there was some, talk and discussion about kind of other cards that might kind of make a modified version of Premier Death Star 2 more fun. So maybe there's something else we can do. What if we did a second tournament? We did a new format. We can kind of try out some of these requests of other players. So I am introducing / suggesting we'll do kind of the 2026 Retro Jawa Championship. And so kind of here's my idea. So given that this would be a new format, I'm suggesting I'd probably say for this one we don't have lock decks. We'll keep it match play, but if you need to switch decks because this format's new, you can. A lot of people requested random brackets, but because it's a brand new format, seeding is not super practical. We'll just make it random, make it easy, and then we'll have a losers bracket after round one only. And then I think this way we don't have endless double elimination. I think we can try it this way simply because it's new, and that way everyone still gets kind of 4 games total to play. Now, what I would say is that the goal of this would be to try to add twists to an existing popular format. We try to ban cards and strategies that are too popular, too powerful, and the goal will be to try to have people playing decks using strategies that have not really been seen in PDS2 tournaments. We might see these in casual games. You might see these other areas, but it might be kind of more difficult to see those. So kind of I'm explaining what I'm going to suggest that I think that would make it more interesting. So keep in mind that, from my point of view, if all we did with Premiere to Death Star 2 modified is if we just banned numbers, if we just banned inserts, like whatever, I don't think it would really change all that much. Kind of the top decks would still play, people still play the same objectives, they still play the same strategies. So the truth is, the insert, like the starting effects stop most of the inserts. Okay, it doesn't stop anger, fear, aggression. But I think if we want to do something novel, something interesting, we got to go beyond just inserts. If people don't want to play against inserts, you can play a casual game and just have a gentleman's agreement not to do that. But I think that we should go beyond and have fun. So I'm going to show the ban list here, and then I'm going to kind of explain it, and then we'll ask for your feedback later. So what I'm suggesting is that yes, we'll ban kind of the numbers here for Dark Side. We'll ban, put all section alert to try to make Brangus a little more toned down, just so that you can't hide at Death Star Docking Bay. We'll ban scanning crews so that you don't have to start Inside Serves You Well as much. And so then my suggestion is let's ban the objectives that we see all the time or that are extremely powerful compared to other ones. So kind of I list them here. Given the fact that a lot of these mains, a lot of these EPPs, a lot of these bounty hunter ships, with the bounty hunter inside them, kind of cards are very powerful. Ban those because they're near like must-haves, and we'll kind of go into there. And then we'll also get rid of arrest store to mob points because they'll compete with objectives. We'll explain more later, and get rid of the operatives. So light side, a similar thing. Get rid of the inserts, kind of get rid of some of the worst cards of just beggar frozen assets, kind of get rid of some objectives, get rid of some EPPs that are kind of near must-haves, get rid of some of the abusive cards. I might get rid of Revolution from a ban list, there are some legitimate uses for this. There's some abusive ones, so I might eliminate this one. Maneuvering flaps just because the ROCS is just dominated by profit speeders or has been, and we're trying to make a situation where speeders are not the best light side one all the time, no matter what.com. Same thing with instruction staging areas, and same thing operatives, and again we'll explain. So you might ask, well, what is allowed? So as far as objectives, it's just these ones. And why would these ones be allowed? Well, simply because we never see carbon chamber testing as an objective as people play. We never see this deal, this deal is getting worse all the time. We very rarely in PDS2 see indoor operations, either the TTO version or the kind of the regular version. We definitely never see Dantooine based operations. We definitely never see MBO in any competitive level. Definitely not Quiet Mind Colony, Rebel Strike Team, non PDS2. I've never seen it in a tournament game, a serious tournament game. Rescue the Princess, absolutely not. The other ones, obviously, kind of Imperial Occupation and kind of local uprising. I think these make sense from the standpoint of if there's no operatives, then you can't flip the objective, and then you're not forcing people to go to these planets. So the issue is if you ban ROPS, then suddenly operatives become really good. And so I kind of mentioned it here, right? And so the idea is that if we ban the operatives but leave these, then we can have decks where people just go to the planet, they can deploy the sites, they can use it as kind of an activation platform. If we allow the operatives and the objective, then I think we get to the point where you have to have these, kind of these operative screw effects. Like you'd have to have leave them to me, you'd have to have, let's keep a little optimism here. And so the goal here would be to say, well, we don't really want to have must-have cards in the deck. Therefore, to me, although I like operatives personally on regular PDS2, I think for this format, I think it makes sense just to ban the operatives and kind of leave the objectives kind of thing. Kind of mentioned the EPPs and kind of the bounty hunter ships is just that, Zuckuss is a near must-have. Like he's like the best card in many ways for Dark Side Space. He's in almost every deck. Like if you don't use Zuckuss, you really need a good excuse as to why not to use Zuckuss. The EPPs are very powerful. Like Obi-Wan lightsaber vastly outnumbers any other Obi-Wan you see, and so we want to try to reduce must-have cards. We want to change things and not have it be the same all the time. Same thing for Palpatine and Luke. If you're not going to lose, Luke Jedi Knight, you need a good reason why. Same thing for Emperor. They're just very good cards. Like I mentioned, the inserts, we're trying to get rid of inserts just because they're so powerful, and then you kind of have to have certain effects and cards to counter them. And we're saying kind of let's eliminate those. And same things for arrest order, insurrection, mobilization points, and staging errors. These are really powerful cards. And the issue is that if our goal is to try to mix things up, and if these aren't all the decks all the time, then we need to, in order to use underutilized strategies, we have to take away the overused effects. So if we take these away, people are much more likely to do something different, to do one of these objectives or a different strategy or something. And I think that's really what we're going for. We're trying to get a different experience. We're trying to experiment with a new format and trying to have a fun experience of trying something new. So that's my proposal for this. I also made a forum message for the Retro Jawa Championship, and I put my proposal here, kind of detailing some of the same things that I showed you. I opted to start kind of 3 weeks later. So, with this tournament, June 7th, start 3 weeks later. That way, the reason is that by the time a few rounds are over here, like you're kind of round 3 or 4, a big chunk of players have already left the tournament. And at that point, it kind of makes sense to try to kind of introduce players into kind of the second tournament. And so you're going to have some players playing both that, register for both and play both. But we are trying to, minimize just kind of the double impact of, kind of asking people to play 4 games a week. I think it'll be really fun. And so the prizes here are similar. So $300 first place, 150 second place, third, fourth place 75. And if you play to the end without conceding, $50 worth. We'll make a play mat, exclusive for this event, and then kind of other players, will have their own kind of random playmat too for attending and participating all the way through. Again, if you want to donate some physical cards, let me know, and we can kind of add these kind of some of the prize pools that was given away. And I kind of go into kind of the reasons for this. Again, it's just to add a twist. It's try to try something new. Try to ban card strategies that are too powerful, too popular, whatever, and try to see if kind of what fun things players can come up with and play games with other than those. Copy the ban list here. So please give me your feedback, what you think, and any suggestions about it. I think we should get a playtest group for this new kind of PDS2 Java format ahead of the tournament. That way we can kind of make adjustments as necessary. But either way, so I plan to run both these tournaments here soon, and love your feedback, love your participation, and I think we'll have a lot of fun. Thanks.